Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Bob Flippen, and here we are in the Farmville train station. 25 years to the day or the month, at least, that I did this presentation originally. 25 years. So we'll do a brief encore tonight, just giving you a basic history of the Springs. I'm not going to go into a big long thing. I'm going to show you my papers, all the artifacts or documents that I managed to gather over the years, all these primary documents. Barbara's brother, Jesse, gave me a bunch of them years ago. And I put them in the notebooks. And I have these here we can look at. And we'll describe to you why they are in these notebooks also. We're going to talk a little bit about the Springs. And we're also going to look at some pictures that I took 40 years ago of the Springs. Then pictures taken last year when I was with some Department of Historic Resources gentlemen here in town who wanted to survey the Springs. And then you're going to see pictures of what it looks like now compared to what it looked like 40 years ago. Also, tonight, this is an interview of a cassette tape that I did with Jack Osborne on one side in 1979. And Billy, the reason it looked like 29 to you was because I crossed my sevens like the Europeans do, so that's why it kind of looked like that. And then Elizabeth Baker on January 8th, 1979 on the other side. And we're going to listen to a little bit from these tapes, just about 10 minutes worth will be it for that. But we would not be able to listen to this tonight were it not for that man right there. I gave the tape up last month, want to see if anybody could digitize this somehow. Billy takes it, and it flew apart on him. If it had happened to me, I would have gone, oh well, thrown it away. Not Billy. Billy is the patron saint of you being able to hear this stuff tonight. He put the thing back together and got it to work. So Billy, we owe him credit for this. Thank you, Billy. All right, why don't we just get started, and we'll go through some pictures, and I'll probably just stop here and there and make a comment or two. And you also, if you have a question about something you see, jump right in. All right. First is the postcards that I managed to come up with over the years related to the Lithia Springs. And it really wasn't that many. It wasn't but maybe a half dozen of them. Like this one right here of a boy sitting in the glen, sitting on top of one of the spring covers. The basic view of the Springs with the covers and the glen and the pavilion at the top of the hill. This was the main nucleus of social activities at the Springs. There was this one here. And then there's another card just like that, but the caption at the bottom only reads Farmville Lithia Springs. Doesn't have the Farmville, Virginia.
Bobby, what was that building to the left of it?
To the left. Top.
Down.
That?
Down in the trees.
Yes. No, well, that plus, is that a building all the way to the end?
Is that right there?
No. Right there. What is that?
It looks to me like a wall or a fence,
does.
but it could be a building because that looks like a loading dock right there.
Okay.
But I think that's that spring house, the storage house that's still there.
Right.
And we'll see some pictures of that.
Okay.
But notice how you see all these spring covers in the glen. Looks like a little walkway right there.
Yes.
That was the pavilion.
Wow.
Approximately 20 feet by 20 feet. I'm going to play you a little excerpt on this cassette tape of Bessie Baker describing a mischievous incident that occurred there. Once again, an overview of the Springs. That's a little better. That's that spring house we're going to be looking at. I don't know what that is right there.
Yeah, it looks
They had to have privies up there for people. I mean, you get a bunch of people together, somebody's going to have to go. So there had to be privies somewhere.
Oh, look at Jack.
Here I am. All right, I got started in this, interested that is, because of collecting antique bottles. At 14 years of age, I sold my very first bottle. It was a green debossed block letter Dr. Pepper bottle from 1951. Sold it for $3 to Carrie Blanton, who used to work here with the town, just passed away last year from COVID. And that hooked me. $3. And I was hooked because I knew there was a bunch of them. But I got collecting bottles, and I was interested in this Lithia Spring thing. You know, they had bottles, so that's why I'm interested. I want to try to find some bottles. So here I'm meeting with, I'm a college student, started out in high school doing this research. It was 78, 77, 78. Then I'm going to George Washington University about fall of 78. And I start making college papers with all the classes I'm taking using the Lithia Springs theme by investigating certain things, such as what is Lithia water? I'm taking geology, so I'm doing a course on hydrology and just what is Lithia water. Just American social history, what it was like for an American Lithia water salesman, the travails that he went through. Put together a bunch of papers that I've written over the years, and then kind of fused them all into one publication that became my book later in 1994. Now, here we go. Here's some springs. This is 1980 or 81, 82, right along in there. And you're looking up the glen there. There's the original Lithia's right there, Lithia 1 and 2. This is what I call flat top. There's two flat tops. That's one right up here by the fence line where the property was. And then there's another one here like that. This is what these spring covers look now. You're not going to see them in this good a condition when we get to last year's pictures. That's probably the best preserved one that's still there, not that one. There's Lithia 1 and 2. These things were recovered in 1927 by Dr. Beckel. So originally they had the arch spring cover like we were looking at. Here they are, just up under the growth. You can't even hardly see them, but there's spring covers in there. That was Lithia 1, that's Lithia 2. Lithia 2, that was a bridge going across the glen. The springs are all over towards the left side. There is the pond where the spring water collected in. Oh my goodness, I'll bet you they filled the bottle out of that thing. Because I got one letter from a guy in Pennsylvania at the Pennsylvania Hospital for the Insane, and he writes in complaining, he says, we got the jug of water, but it tasted stale and like it had been collected from the receptacle of dying leaves in a puddle in the woods. So you can imagine that? There you go. There we go. This is along the fence line. Now, there's some bottles.
Oh, yep.
It looks like a reverse negative there because it's spelled backwards. All right. No, that's right. No, that's Lithia water. Water, Lithia. I don't know.
Yeah, it is backwards. Water's backwards.
No, that's odd. Anyway,
Is it turned around?
that's what I'm kind of wondering. It's facing the other way, but I don't know why I would do that if I'm taking a picture of it. But that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's your basic half-gallon bottle right there that you get. They also made them in soda bottles with flavors like grape, orange, root beer, all that kind of stuff. And this is the older one, what I call the tombstone slug. And the slug plate is something they make because when you put embossing on a bottle, like this right here with a horseshoe for Lithia Springs, if you want to make another bottle, totally unrelated, you have to make an entirely new mold, unless you do like what's here on the end. That one right there, that slug plate right there. You can pop them in and out of the mold is what I'm getting at. You just make the plate with whatever company it is, pop them in the molds, that way you don't have to make an entire new mold. Mineral Bottling Company here on the end, I don't believe was directly associated with the Springs company. Rather, there was a local doctor who contracted the Springs, because they had the bottling equipment, to bottle sodas with the Lithia water. But I don't think the Lithia Springs sold this. They contracted this out to another doctor. The man's name is mentioned in that Crucible and Cornerstone, Cumberland County history. It's got one little paragraph about mineral bottling, and it has his name in there. There's our bottles again. Now it's facing the right way.
Yeah, that's it.
This is what you call a demijohn in a carboy. The demijohn is the big bottle, up to about 5 gallons. The carboy is the thing you put the demijohn in that you can tilt so you can pour the water out of the bottle. 5 gallons is heavy. Oh yeah, there I am with my George Washington University notebook right there, going over a glass pile here, salivating, and wanting to just drool dripping out of my mouth, but nothing to hold, it's all broke. And taking some notes. Now, we moved to the other side of the hill. Because when the Springs were developed in 1877, it was supposedly the original founders, John and Elizabeth Rosa Houston. She was a Thaxton. She wasn't feeling good. They're walking behind the glen and behind the home, and she noticed this water and evinced a desire to drink some of it. He whips out his trusty glass. I guess he just happened to be carrying. She drank from the water, found it pleasant, and then started to feel better. So she credited her recuperation to the water itself. John Houston, the husband, he's the businessman. He's the one that made this thing into an enterprise. It's going. And that's what I notice about most of these spring waters, not just Lithia's. Like the Buffalo water, that was probably the best marketed water in the country because Thomas Good was a businessman. He was also in the 3rd Virginia Cavalry. When he died, it all goes to heck. Same with the Amelia Springs. In 1860, the guy ran that, fell over in the spring and drowned trying to clean it out. It all goes downhill after that. When John Houston in Farmville dies, it all starts to go downhill because it goes next to his wife, Elizabeth Rosa Thaxton. She's not a businessman, she's a Southern belle. So she leases out Springs operations to certain people in town. Like the house on the corner, Osborne Road, the back wing, Dr. W.E. Anderson used that as a sanitarium for people to stay at. And S.W. Paulette Jr. leased out the bottling operation. Boom. So that goes on until she dies in 1909. Then her brother, Richard Dabney Thaxton from St. Louis, comes to Farmville to assume the residential proprietorship. And he knew nobody when he came to Farmville except a woman, a cousin that is, by the name of Betty Peters. She lived up on Bridge Street at the Peters house. If you're out in the DMV parking lot and you look up the hill, that pretty brick house with the white woodwork and all, that's where the Betty Peters' house was. And Betty was a card. I got a lot of her letters in here, and I like Betty. Betty is typical. When you get old, you're tired of being polite. You start getting honest. You just tell people, you know. And Betty was like that. And I'm going to read you an excerpt from one of her letters here before long. So anyway, after Dabney Thaxton dies, he dies in 1927. Then the proprietorship, there was a big court case in town. A company had developed with 4 men in town, A.B. Davidson, D.W. Beckham, H.A. Barra, and what's the other guy's name? Oh, I forget right now. But they formed this company with Thaxton having the residential proprietorship and 10% ownership. Well, they had this big blowout over ownership of the springs. I mean, the Thaxtons were big on litigating everybody. They took people to court all the time. So they had this big court case. Thaxton dies like 1 month before it's settled. And the judge decrees that no, the 4 guys who own the company, they're in the right here. So the Thaxtons, they get mad, just go over the hill from where the springs were, that they were using, and open up these 2 springs right here. 1927, they use these. Now, remember Baxter's, you leave in Farmville at 45, and the little gas station, convenience store Baxter's, down the hill from Marion's, what used to be South Hall and Jenkins. If you're like filling up with gas right there, and you look across the road, you're going to see a big embankment. Just look a little to the right, that's what you see right there. The new springs that they developed. And then they would send the water to her brother in Chicago, John Thaxton. There's the spring house. It is gone. You ride by it right now, all you see is the concrete foundation. All that is gone. Thank goodness I took pictures of it. And that's like in the woods looking towards Route 45. Looking at one spring. If it was ever made into a park, which is kind of the preservation thing I had in mind, you'd have to cover these things over because you know people won't fall over and drown, a little kid or something. And this is, there's that spring house, 45 is about right in here. That's the pipeline going from the spring that's up over here, across the little creek there. That was the pavilion that he built there. This would be Oddie Baker. Mrs. Bessie Baker's husband, he was a carpenter, so he built all this stuff. Spring house, there it is. I'm telling you, that's me on the right side there walking around.
Oh, there's my house.
There you go. There it is.
Oh.
Is that your house?
I lived there when I first got married. We lived there when my son was born. Yep. It's not mine, it's Leslie Osborne's now, but I live there, and it is haunted as the day is long. Sorry, Bob, it is haunted.
So here, you got your spring house again. It's like if you're standing in this view right now, you wouldn't see any of the wood there. It's all gone, just the concrete foundation. But one thing I was big on was taking details on architectural details of the building. In case it ever was put back together, we'd have something to go from to rebuild. I had no idea what that pavilion looked like. Okay, now we're in the back of Jack Osmond's yard. And this is that little building that was in the postcards I was talking about. I think it was the bottling house or the spring house, the storage house, basically. And the springs are all like behind that building going up the hill. All right. There, we're looking up again, this looks like about 1982. That's right behind that storage building. There's old Flat Top, because it's got a big beech tree right behind it. Just looking up the gully, more spring covers. Lithia 1 and 2. There you can see in the spring house again, we're back across on the new part again. You can see where it did have electricity put in it. There's Flat Top number 1. It's up there by the fence line. Because on one of the plats that you'll see here, it has the fence, and then just on the other side of that fence was marked the Alum Spring. So we know what that spring was. There's a Flat Top. There I'm walking around. All right, that's over on the new part again. That'd be the spring house. There's a spring cover. There's a spring cover. Again, oh, new springs, inside, outside in, corner details, new spring. That is the inside the new bottling house there, the galvanized tub where they fill the bottles. Pipe in the ground. You can almost see Lithia written right across the thing there.
Oh, yeah.
That's details from that pavilion, and look, it had electricity also. See that? Okay, this is the cottage that's just across the fence from the old springs going up to that new section. Inside that building is where all these documents were, all these papers and letters and things. When I got to it, it's like the floor had collapsed and all this stuff was laying down in it like a big funnel. And it must have happened pretty recently because it wasn't all ruined and wet yet. So I started grabbing all I could because I'm getting interested in this thing. And that cottage was actually moved from the old spring side to the new spring side as part of that settlement of the court case in 1927. Now we're back to Old Springs. Now this is a house that Mr. Baker built for her and Bessie to live in, but it was never completed. Just the outside, the inside was never finished. But then, I guess it was in the 80s, late 80s, the guy in town who ran the Sherwin-Williams store, Dwayne Calloway, I think was his name, he bought it and fixed it up. And I don't know where he is now, he's gone. Okay. This is just off of the letter billhead from the 1890s. I just think it's so cool. I mean, just what a great scene of people out at the springs and cases of bottles stacked up, you know, I'm just salivating. There we go. Now this particular design on this bottle is the second design that was on those half-gallon bottles. The first design on a half-gallon bottle looked like a Moses figure. This right here. Almost looks like a Moses or a high priest or something touching the water.
Yes.
Okay? That was the original. That was the original design. This design came out in 1905. I got the original patent for it, matter of fact. So that came in 1905. That design, it appears in several different styles, even a more kind of Art Deco style, I call it, towards the 20s and 30s. Okay, now we're starting last year's visit.
Yeah, look, half the chimney's gone.
Yeah, some of those bricks from that are in my driveway right
Oh,
now.
good.
Yeah, put them to use.
Where was the kitchen, downstairs?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
It was an
To
English.
the right was the kitchen. To the left downstairs we used as a den. To the right above that was our bedroom. To the left above that was our son's nursery. To the right above that, that's a bathroom in the middle.
Okay.
To the right, we just never used.
But the bottom was the kitchen, right?
The kitchen was on the right, and then there was a bathroom out in a hallway downstairs, and then a full bathroom upstairs.
And the original building had another wing straight out the back. That was torn down in 1940 when they renovated the home, the Putneys did. And the materials were used to build a house down across from Early Street that Mary, my companion, lived in for a long time.
Wow, right behind that.
Right, the materials off the back of that house were used to build that.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Wow. That was Debbie's mother, Debbie Baker's mother. Yep.
So here we are.
Yes, yes, yeah.
The house. All right, this guy, because I've never been in this building before. This is that storage building we're talking about down by the Springs.
Yep.
The door was open. Nobody's stopping me. Here's what it looked like inside.
Look at that wood.
Oh, those right there. I was hyperventilating when I saw these boxes stacked on top of each other because they looked just wide enough for 2 bottles and 5 long. Like 10 bottles could fit in that box. And I'm all excited. Oh gosh, it's got to be a
So they were like shipping boxes?
For fish.
Oh!
Because there's a tag on the end of one of them, and it was some kind of fish from when Jack had the grocery store
Okay,
there. Where the
okay.
corner market is, Jack Osborne had a grocery store there.
So were they empty?
Yeah, they were empty.
And you really didn't take one home with you, Bob?
No.
Nah.
It's just a big wooden box.
At the time.
And people lived in this thing at one time. You can tell. People lived in this.
Wow. Oh my God.
And look at this
Wow.
tacked to the wall. There's a bag of flour. I guess it's at the Stop and Shop Jack Osborne.
Oh
Right there at the bottom.
my God.
There you go. There's a big one. Nailed to the wall.
Oh, that's
Still
awesome.
And that was stenciled above the window right there.
Oh.
Farmville Lithia Springs Company. This is a level of excitement for me that is paramount to one of those little dogs when you come home and it's so excited to see it just run home and it's got, you know, it has a countenance problem. Mine is the countenance problem, I'm good. Okay, now we're looking at, this is what they're gonna look like now, folks. Brace yourself, this is probably the best one. Caved in,
Oh my goodness.
Collapsed.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no flat top, there's the beech tree right there in the corner. And you see the water right there in the bottom.
Yeah.
It's plain as day. And I tell you, if you excavate these springs, you're gonna find coins down in there. Because I've thrown some coins down in there.
Wow.
And I know other people did. Look at that, just
That
caved
was done.
directly in.
It was. Wow.
There's Lithia 1 right there, it looks like.
That's the ones that they capped or
Right.
domed
So that would
later.
be 2 right there, and that's Lithia
Okay.
1. So look, grown over.
Yeah.
Well, why did they stop, why did they stop?
I think it's a combination of things. First off, you had greater availability of the municipal water. Vitamin and mineral tablets had come out. And the guy who was hustling the water in Chicago at the end in 1945 was mugged and killed.
Wow.
So Baker says, because he was found parked on the wrong side of the road with no money on him on a day that he collected. His death was declared a cerebral hemorrhage. She swears he was robbed. But when he died, there was nobody else interested in carrying out spring water. That's like stuff by then. Glass piles everywhere. There's Brendan Burke of the Department of Historic Resources. That is Lee and Marv's nephew, by the way. There you go, across the Allen Spring, across the fence. There's Brendan and Michael Clem. He was there with him. They were measuring the house. There's the flower bag again. Okay. This was in a newspaper article in 1964, just a picture put in the Farmville Herald about it, and it was the Bonley House, and it was destroyed when they built 45. Because it used to be, you came out of Farmville, you went up Osborne Road and then left on up Osborne Road. That was the main way out of town. That straightaway up the hill to Marion's wasn't built until 1951. And construction of that supposedly destroyed that bottle house right there.
Because that was sitting, what would now be the middle of the road.
Correct. Now, this is a picture that has come up in the meantime. from the John Chester Mattoon photos that Benedict has cataloged now at the library. John Chester Mattoon was a professor at Longwood who taught, get this, manual training. Okay, all right, I know you're dying to know. He taught the girls how to use a hammer and a nail and a screwdriver and a saw so they wouldn't have to depend on anything else, folks. I want, yes?
Picket Springs, was it the same type of healing water? Or?
Yes. Pickett's came here about 1906, 7, 8, in that range, and they started the spring over there where Farmville Lake is. And apparently it's really, really good water. They did a little advertising gimmick where they took one of those half-gallon bottles, sealed it, had it signed by the mayor, and they stuck it in a store window and left it for 1 year. Can you imagine what a bottle stuck in a store window with the sunlight hitting it of tap water, what that would look like after a year? The cloudy stuff that would be in the bottom of it. It was at the end of the year, they opened it up, they drank it, said it was delicious, it was nice and clear, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, but I believe the Pickett water was very good water. Absolutely.
Was that part of the Dunnington place?
Maybe originally.
Wow.
Nightfall originally.
That's another hot topic.
Was it Farmville Lake part of that also?
Reason for that too.
Yeah, Farmville Lake was probably part of that. And Farmville Lake was a stock company. I mean, it was a big deal when that opened up every year. You had a big front page thing in the paper. It was a lake to swim at. They had a golf course there. That was a big deal. All right, folks, if you haven't got one of the books, I got soft covers and hard covers tonight. And I just want to thank you for coming out and putting up with it.
Thank you, Bob.
Forgot you had Clear Prize, which is a book. Number 166, yeah, it's been covered in hardcover. All right, fellas, I won't win my whole book.
Phyllis, do you want to let somebody draw the number?
That would be quiet.
Where, Bob?
I'm gonna draw my own number.
That's fine.
Here we go.
I told you that you be
The last four numbers are 8847.
8847. 8847.
Oh.
Right?
That's the way I see it. Ms. Turner got it.
Congratulations.
All right, congratulations. Number 166.
Good job.
There we go.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Remember, this will be on a YouTube channel in about a week. As soon as we get it uploaded over to Longwood. And we'll go from Lithia water this month to flood waters next month.
Yes, we do. We'll have to come.
With that, we'll adjourn.
We've got some flood.
Come up and look at Bob's stuff here.
Way to go. Thank you, man.